So you're going to select upload, you're going to upload image, you're going to select browse, and you're going to select the image that you want. Okay, we're going to select upload, and then we're going to select it here from our recent uploads, and we're going to click add to canvas. You can see when you upload it, it all comes grouped together. So you're going to select it, and we're going to change the size. So I want to open the lock here so that I can actually change both dimensions myself. For the width, I want to make this 35.9791. And for the height, I want to make this 29.88056. So this is the size that I want my whole image to be. And you can see now when I double click and I ungroup everything, I'll now be able to edit things individually, but you can now see that each circle is 5.08 centimeters, which is 2 inches. So this is the size that I want my tokens to be, and this is the size of the blank ones sold on the website. So you can also see the instructions up here. All of the black is what we're going to be cutting out with Cricut. All of the red stuff we're going to be ignoring. And the font that I used to type the kids' names is in chalkboard. So we're going to go to text here on the left. And I'm going to type in Chloe and Alex. Oops. And I'm going to type in Chloe and Alex. I'm just going to highlight that, and we're going to change the font by going up here to chalkboard. So it's chalkboard, not chalkboard SE, it's just chalkboard here. So you can see that changed the font itself. I am going to change the color to black. And then I just need to resize it. So that's why I left the circles on here, so that you can resize this into something that fits depending on how many names there are, the sizing of the names, etc. Zoom in just a little bit here. Oops. That's pretty good how I would like the heart and the names to be. And I'm going to move this circle over just a little bit so that I can center these names. So these ones, because I like the spacing between the heart and the name, I'm going to highlight these and group them together. Now what I can do is highlight all 3 of these. The Dad's Tokens, the Happy Father's Day, the Chloe and Alex. Highlight all of this, and then I can align it center. That will allow my names to be centered. Now I'm going to move the red circle back over, and I'm going to do the exact same alignment, but this time including the circle. Exact same thing, but with the circle, and that's going to allow everything to be centered in the circle. Okay, and it allows you to kind of place that with the circle where you feel that you like it. So now everything is formatted. Okay, so I think it all looks good, but you can see if I were to print this right now, all of my letters would be printed by themselves, and that would be a disaster. I need to make sure that each saying is cut together. I have to weld each one together. So I'm going to select the words, and I'm going to double click, and I'm going to select weld. Now it's important that you don't select the circle with that, because you want the words to be welded together, but you don't want them to be welded to the circle. The circle are just placeholders for you. They're not part of what you're going to be cutting. Select, double click, and select weld. Select the text, double click, weld. Select the text, double click, weld. Select the text, double click, weld. And you're going to have to do this for each one. It's a little bit of a tedious task, but unfortunately you have to do each one individually. Okay, so you can see now that we've welded all of those together. Oh, these are just our letters up here, so just to show you, I'm going to weld all of this together. Oh, and we still have to weld this one here. So I'm going to have to move the red circle out of the way to do this one. And I will select weld. Okay, so now you can see that all of our sayings are together. There's no individual cutout of letters anymore. All of our circles and stuff are here, but we're not going to be cutting those. They're going to show up on the mat. But we're not, you could also delete them. You don't need them anymore. Like, you could delete them. I'm just going to leave them there and then just not cut that mat. So I am going to select make it. And I'm going to select my mat. Now you can do this with like HTV vinyl or permanent vinyl. I do find typically that HTV sticks better to wood with a little bit of heat, but because these tokens are not going to be getting a ton of wear and tear, I think permanent vinyl will be fine. And I also prefer the look of permanent vinyl. I think it leaves more of like a glossy finish. So before I cut this, I am going to space things out a little bit more. I find Cricut puts things really close together, and I prefer to have a little bit of space in between each one because I like to cut them apart and then weed them. And I find that if it's too close together, I run the risk of cutting into one of the letters, and then I have to reprint, and I end up wasting more vinyl than I ended up saving by putting them close together. So my personal preference is to just put a little bit more space, not a ton, but just enough that I feel better cutting between them, especially because they do some like wasted space here at the end when you could just move stuff over and make your life a little bit easier, in my opinion. So I'm just gonna rearrange a few things. So I try to find a balance between saving material and ease of use. Okay, to me that looks good. There's just a little bit more space in between each one, so I feel more comfortable cutting that. So I will click continue. Oh, if you were using HTV, you would have to mirror, but because we're using permanent vinyl, I'm not going to mirror. And make sure that you're cutting out the black, because all of this red stuff you're just going to ignore and you're not going to cut it out. So I will click continue. I'm going to select my Cricut Maker. Okay, and I'm going to select premium vinyl because that's what I'm using. So I realized I was not recording, but all I did was attach a piece of Oracle 651 to my mat and braid it down. Let's away from the wall just a little bit. Okay, feed this material in, and we will make it. So this is going to take a decent amount of time to cut, so I will come back when it's finished. Okay, you can see we are done cutting, so I'm going to unload. And it'll fit on our sheet. Looks good. Just going to push this back. So I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to pull my mat away from my vinyl. This helps to not curl up your vinyl. And then I'm just going to cut all of these into their individual sayings. Making sure not to cut any of the actual sayings in half. Just gonna weed each one out. Okay, so we'll just weed each one out and I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, so you can see I've weeded them all out. I am going to then apply transfer tape. So I'm going to do the big one first. And I'm just going to smooth out the vinyl, make sure it sticks. And we'll transfer it to the transfer tape. Perfect, so you can see it's on our transfer tape. And then I'm just gonna line this up on our lid. And I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, I need to make sure it's really pressed down. And I'm noticing now that with this specific type of wood, the HTV would stick easier because you would have that heat source. So you just have to be careful taking it off. The permanent vinyl has a the permanent vinyl has a harder time sticking than the HTV would. At least to this lid. The lid is a different material. For the actual tokens, it should be much easier. Okay, so I might suggest HTV for the lid just to make that a little bit easier, but the permanent vinyl still does work. Just going to repress it all down to make sure it's stuck. Yeah, it looks pretty cute. And then we're just going to go through and do each saying. So I actually forego the dot for the eyes. It was just too difficult to weed out for all of them, and I think it looks fine without the dot. So that is what I'm doing. I'm going to cut this because I can use it a bunch of times. You can reuse your transfer tape until it's not sticky anymore. Okay, and I'm just going to, again, eyeball these. You can see these stick much better to the tokens than it did the lid. And as I transfer them to the transfer tape, I always just kind of double check and make sure there's no pieces of like an E or something that I accidentally forgot to weed out. I'm just going to continue to do all the rest. I'll see you guys when I'm done. So at Dollar Tree, they have 2 different size containers that you can do. I tried fitting 25 tokens in here, and it does fit if they go in a certain way. However, just to be safe, I am going to make mine using the larger. And you can, oh, it's from Dollarama, sorry. So I'm just going to peel this sticker off. Unfortunately, this part is not coming off as easy, but I will just work away at it. Okay, so you can see I got all the actual sticker off, but you can see there's a lot of glue residue. So what I'm gonna do is take a piece of paper towel and rubbing alcohol. I'm just gonna put some rubbing alcohol on my paper towel. And that will break down the adhesive left on the glass. So you can see all the adhesive is gone. Okay, so I've attached them all, and you can see the jar, and then you just put all the chips in, and you have a cute little Father's Day gift.